If you find that you're at a spot where you want to gain muscle, gain strength, but you also want to get leaner, and you're not sure if you should go and focus on muscle gain and put on some more size because you're not necessarily very lean currently, or at least close to as lean as you want to be, but on the other hand, you're afraid to focus on cutting body fat, getting smaller because you might appear too skinny, lose your muscle, and lose your strength. Well, if that sounds like you, then this video is going to help you determine which way to go. What's good, YouTube? Coach John back again, repping Beyond the Iron. I drop weekly content on this channel, helping you get to your fitness goals and just your overall lifestyle that you desire faster and in a more enjoyable way. If you're interested in doing that, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, as well as the like button. Make sure you follow my Instagram, and if you need any programs or you're interested in coaching, working one-on-one with me, you can find the links to all that stuff down in the description below. So I get asked this all the time: should I cut or should I bulk? And if I'm not being provided pictures and other details, it's very difficult to answer this outright. So I'm going to break down pretty much every scenario that one would come across in order to determine which direction to go in. Now, keep in mind, a lot of factors matter here. These factors include things like, what is your overall goal, right? How lean do you want to be in general or in the long term? Where are you currently? How lean are you right now? So for example, on the male side of things, can you see your abs? And if so, how prominent are they? If you can see your abs relatively well, you're probably close to that 15% body fat mark. If you can't see your abs at all, probably up closer to 20% or higher. And if you can see your abs pretty prominently, then you're probably closer to a 12% or less, obviously depending on how prominent they actually are. And from a female side of things, how lean are you in the midsection? If you can see lines, you can see abs even in some cases, then you're probably close to a 20% body fat range. If you can't see abs at all, you're carrying some excess body fat there, no lines, no toning on the arms or the legs, probably getting up closer to the 30% range, and so on. So again, where are you currently? Of course, what does your nutrition and your workouts look like currently as well? That's another important factor to consider. And lastly, what is your experience level? How long have you been doing this? How long have you been doing this properly? All of these things come into play before we can determine where you should go next. With that said, I will drop this spoiler in for you right now. Most people in most cases, because we're assuming a lot of people that are watching this video are not advanced lifters lifting 5 or more years properly, as they typically know exactly what to do at that point. Most people watching this type of a video are probably going to be better off cutting, meaning getting leaner before you focus primarily on muscle gain. Remember, getting leaner and gaining muscle, if focusing on one or the other, entail two different things you need to be doing on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis in order to achieve them fully. So like I said, most people, especially beginners, almost all beginners will probably be at a point where you need to cut, with a very small exception of a few people, which I'll mention later on in the video. But most people need to be cutting because a lot of people's body fat levels just naturally are higher than they want to be. But again, that depends a lot on what your overall goal is and where you are now in comparison to that goal. So here's the reason why most people should probably cut. If you're somebody who's not sure if you should or shouldn't, maybe because you feel like your body fat is a little high, cutting and getting at a lower body fat percentage is almost always a better place to start when trying to focus on muscle gain. One, because you're going to look, feel, and perform better, but secondly, you're also going to put into place very quickly the disciplines and habits you need to actually get to that level in the first place. A lot of people start from a place where they're not necessarily very lean, and then they focus on gaining muscle, so they put on some extra weight, including extra body fat, as is natural, and then they end up falling into a sort of a perma-bulk stage, or it becomes very difficult. They become unmotivated in the future to get down to their dream, because if we're being honest, 9 out of 10 times it is a lot easier and a lot less discipline required to maintain a higher body fat percentage, obviously. Of course, I'm not saying you should get shredded, veins in your abs, veins in your face. That's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is a relatively low body fat percentage level. Now for males, I would generally recommend that to be close to the 10% body fat range. Even 12% is fine, but no higher than 12%. Again, this is a very healthy level of body fat still, but it does require a lot of discipline and a lot of principles to get there that you want to lay that foundation of. Now for females, it's going to be closer to between 18, which is pretty low, but I would say maybe 20 to 25% body fat is a good lean place to start if you decide to focus on bulking or building muscle. Now, something else to keep in mind here is if you're a beginner, just because you focus on cutting doesn't mean that you can't build muscle at the same time. In fact, this recompositioning process is something that I just dove into in detail in my previous video. So make sure you check that one out in more detail if you are somebody who is a beginner who's going to start cutting but wants to build muscle at the same time. It is possible. All you got to do is make sure you optimize your workouts, your training in the gym, combine that with a caloric deficit to lose the fat, and you will actually achieve both at a pretty rapid pace. Regardless of whatever level you're at, you do not want to start a bulk or gaining muscle mass focused sort of a diet if you are at about 15% body fat as a male or higher, because again, it's just going to set you up to gain excess body fat, which leads to an inevitable long, grueling, tough cutting process after, where you could end up sacrificing muscle, not feeling very good and not performing very good. And so for males, again, that's going to be that 15% threshold is typically what I say. I myself will get up to around 15, 16% at most at the peak of my bulks, and then I'll cut from there. For females, again, I would say that that threshold is 25%. If you are higher than 25% as a female and you're looking to begin the weight gain or bulking process, then I don't recommend it. I recommend you try cutting instead, get a little bit leaner first, and then we can transition into a caloric surplus and a complete and a perfectly executed lean bulk. Now, let's say you're skinny fat, okay? This is very common, right? If you're a beginner, again, most people that are skinny fat, 9 times out of 10 are beginners. So you're gonna fall into the category I just mentioned, which means cutting. Now you might be wondering, but I have no muscle. Like, shouldn't I be focusing on that? Shouldn't I bulk then? And again, like I mentioned, recompositioning is what you need to do. So skinny fat is somebody who's got barely any muscle in the arms, the chest, anywhere, but their abs aren't necessarily visible. And I was actually here previously when I was a lot younger, and recompositioning is the best way to go here. In other words, enter a slight deficit of calories, increase and improve your performance in the gym. Since you're not used to lifting those weights, your body hasn't adjusted to that at all and has no experience doing so, you will gain muscle and strength rapidly as you lose that body fat. Your body composition is going to shift. You're going to be relatively lean with a decent base foundation of muscle mass, and then you can tweak and adjust and go into a lean bulk. So that is if you're skinny fat. Cutting is still the key, but you need to optimize both your training and your diet, stay very disciplined, and recomposition. Again, check out the video if you are skinny fat. Recompositioning is what you want to do. Now, who should bulk? If you're thinking this is just everybody needs to cut, obviously that's not the case. If you are a skinny boy or girl that is relatively lean, right, which I was at one point as well, then you definitely want to start a bulk. You want to build that foundation, and plus you're at a point, or you're just lucky, as some of them would say, you've got the genetics to where it's going to be slightly easier for you to lose body fat, as you're usually more tolerant to hunger and you've got a lower appetite, so it's going to be easier for you to eat less when that time comes. So for now, you actually need to build the opposite disciplines of getting enough food, getting enough protein, and lifting those weights consistently and progressing in them to see results. Now, of course, you want to make sure you're doing this in a lean bulk sort of fashion, not a dirty bulk. I've got a video comparing the two here if you're on the fence about that. And I also have a video explaining exactly how to execute a proper lean bulk, which will save you multiple years if you do it properly. So check those out. If you're somebody who's skinny and lean, not skinny on the extremities, but fat in the stomach, then bulking is the way to go for you. Pretty much everybody else, you want to at least recomposition, or if not, focus on cutting primarily. So that should pretty much cover all scenarios that would watch this video at least. If you're somebody who's coming back from an injury or just a hiatus because you fell off of the gym, then what you want to do is assess how lean you are currently versus how lean you were before, or how lean you want to be. Also assessing the muscle mass compared to that, how much you lost, where you are now compared to where you were before, and then from there you can take the proper action. Obviously, if you're not anywhere close to how lean you were before or how lean you want to be, the cut is probably the best way, and you're still in a scenario where you can recomposition as you cut, so long as everything is being executed properly and you're doing so with discipline. So that is probably the best course of action. Again, if you're relatively lean coming back from a hiatus still, then you can focus on maintenance calories or even move into a lean bulk, rebuild that foundation, and then cut later on. Again, there's plenty of individual factors as I mentioned in the beginning, but it is a very straightforward formula. If you are wondering whether you should bulk or cut and you are very, very lean, then you should probably bulk, lean bulk that is. Now, if you are wondering that because you feel like you don't look so good, you're not performing so good, or you're a complete beginner, then you need to make sure that you cut or recomposition, get to that foundation of being lean, because it's much more difficult to stay and be lean than it is to gain muscle and gain mass. Of course, that's the fun part. So I would definitely get to a place where you start leaner and build up from there, because you have much more control over your body composition, you have the disciplines, and you're going to perform and look better throughout that entire time. So that is my recommendation to you. And again, most people watching this video, you are probably going to fall into that category. Keep in mind, if you are in the middle of a bulk and you're not sure where to go from here, again, assess your leanness. Did you spill over that 15% range as a man or that 25% range as a woman, and you're only halfway through the bulk? Then a mini cut might be a good idea. I've made videos on that as well. You can check out on the channel. But you just need to assess. If you've only been bulking for a month and you started, even though you realize now you should have cut, no problem, just transition into a cut. If you are 10 months into your bulk and you've got 2 left and the body fat levels are getting kind of high, you're probably okay with finishing off that bulk, so long as you understand and are prepared for the consequences of a potentially longer cut in the future. I mean, you've come this far after 10 months. If you planned on 2 more, again, you just have to assess where you're at currently. How far away are you from the leanness that you want to be at? If it's very far, more times than not, you want to move towards that cut and get leaner instead. The muscle mass will come over those years of progressing, tracking your workouts, and improving performance and executing lean bulks year after year. But again, you want to do so from the right starting point. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, and if you found it helpful as well, comment below anything else you'd like to see. I'd be happy to make that for you on this channel, and make sure you check out the other content that I've made so far. Thanks again for watching. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe, so I see you in the next video. I'm out.